joined the long list of countries to evacuate its stranded citizens. There's criticism abound that government is doing too little too late, offering sympathy but little support to some 18,000 Pakistanis still left behind in Libya. Kamal Haider, Al Jazeera, Islamabad.
Now to Bahrain, where protests are continuing in the capital Manama as the campaign for democratic reform enters its third week. Demonstrators remain camped out at the Pearl roundabout, the epicenter of the anti-government protests, and thousands more were blocking the entrance to the Prime Minister's office on Sunday. Police with riot shields stood behind one gate there, preventing them from disrupting a government meeting. The Shia majority has long complained of discrimination and of political persecution in the island kingdom. The Sunni Muslim Khalifa family rules Bahrain, which is a strategic US ally and home to the US Fifth Fleet. Well, Mata Ibrahim Mata is a member of parliament from Bahrain's opposition Al-Wifaq party. He's been at the protests in Manama and says that the youth of the country are the driving force behind them.
They are the initiative taker for this movement, and the political parties, they are supporting such initiatives. I was there, and people there, their main demand was to remove the government, to change the government. The government currently is responsible about many detainees who were tortured, and some detainees were tortured until death. The government failed in many accommodation and social protection programs.
Joining us on the line now is Mansour Al-Arayed, who's chairman of the Gulf Council for Foreign Relations and a former senator in Bahrain. He's in Manama. Thanks for being with us, sir. How long is this going to go on for in Bahrain? How long are these protests going to last? How responsive to the protesters' demands will the government be?
Thank you very much, Indian. As you're aware, it has been started now for a week or so, and I would see that more demonstration will follow in the coming week. The government is, they've called for a dialogue with opposition parties and most of civic society to reach some sort of a compromise towards, some sort of a constitutional democracy. Now, the longer that this takes, the more agitated the civic society would be, and I would look forward to some sort of situation that will allow the government to react in a faster way. Maybe some sort of a privy council initially to ensure that the off track. You have to consider, when you look at Bahrain, you see it's a constitutional monarchy, so therefore you cannot look at it in terms of it is Egypt or Tunisia. It's part of a GCC. That's another element that needs to be looked at. The third thing that needs to be looked at, yes, that's a U.S. ally, and therefore stability becomes very important. And also, we have two strong Muslim neighbors. And therefore, the thing is not really only the trajectory of democratization. How do you build a Muslim Democrat process?
We'll leave it there. So we appear to have a pretty bad connection on the line, but I really appreciate you coming on to express your point of view. Mansour Al-Arayed there, speaking from Manama. Now, in Yemen, at least 40 pro-democracy protesters have been wounded in clashes with government loyalists. The fighting happened in Ib city, which is southwest of the capital, Sana'a. Witnesses said that they heard gunfire and saw government supporters wielding batons and throwing stones. Well, Yemen is a hub for Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. The US is worried that upheaval across the Arab world could further destabilize the country. Kimberly Halkett reports.
As thousands of anti-government protesters continue to rally in Yemen, in Washington, lawmakers meet to discuss what they say is now America's most urgent national security threat.
The ramifications are all going to be very real as we look at the changing nature of what's going on in Yemen, a protected stronghold for Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula.
The al-Qaeda group has been on Washington's radar for some time. It's suspected of waging a campaign to radicalize U.S. citizens, even inspiring Nadel Hassan, the man charged with killing 13 people at a U.S. Army base in Texas. So last month, the Pentagon doubled its military assistance to the Yemen government to fight al-Qaeda. But mounting anti-government protests in Yemen are making Washington nervous about its allies' future. What happens if the government falls? It's a question AlJazeera put to the U.S. State Department.
Yes, Yemen is a very important country to the United States.
So what impact does this unrest have on that security concern?
Well, they're not mutually exclusive. In other words, there is a genuine security concern in Yemen that is a concern for Yemen and for the United States.
But members of the Yemeni American community argue the al-Qaeda threat in Yemen is overstated. If the government collapses, they say al-Qaeda would have little support.
Al-Qaeda has no base with the Yemeni people. Al-Qaeda is hated in Yemen.
Despite the challenges of the Yemen protests, Washington's hopeful any imminent threats can still be contained. Kimberly Halkett, AlJazeera, Washington.
Here with the news hour from Al Jazeera. Just ahead, China steps up security in Beijing and Shanghai as groups call for protests similar to the ones we've seen across the Middle East. And the show must go on as Brazil gears up for Carnival. We're in Rio to find out why nothing can stop the samba.
What Gaddafi has done, he dismantled or destroyed the system in the country.
As chaos and violence sweep across Libya.
They're living through fear, they're living through a nightmare.
They're using ammunition, live ammunition.
Al Jazeera hears from those who have lived in fear of Gaddafi's regime.
We don't want him to leave. We want to arrest him. 42 years is too much.
Libya, a state of terror. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Information travels in many ways. Knowledge passes in an instant.
If you want to communicate with those shaping the headlines, this is your chance to ask questions directly to the people making the news. Riz Khan, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Where the action is happening.
This is the main military push by the Pakistani army.
Where promises are broken.
We are going to have more families facing homelessness than we can even dream of.
Where progress takes its toll.
Dicing with death, grabbing whatever they can.
Al Jazeera.
Hello again, this is Al Jazeera. Adrian Finnegan with you here in Doha. A reminder now of the main developments today in Libya. Rebels continue to battle pro-Gaddafi forces for control over Bin Jawad. They've been bombarding government positions with rocket launchers. Meanwhile, rebels fighting Colonel Gaddafi fell back to the city of